If you've watched the channel for any length of time, which first of all, thank you if that is you, you have seen we've done quite a few videos about the insurance debacle that has taken place here in the state of Florida, really since about 2022 when Hurricane Ian came through and the problems that all of that caused. Now, this really was the perfect storm in terms of that created a lot of problems in the insurance industry. That was also around the same time that interest rates started going up, and that wreaked a lot of havoc into the overall real estate market as we know it here in Florida. So what has happened with insurance? Well, there was a lot of new regulations that came into place, and there was some money pumped into the reinsurance market because the state of Florida is operating in a surplus. And so what does that look like for us in 2025? And here's the deal. It is significantly better, and I felt the need to tell you about what's going on in the insurance world. So I'll give you a personal example. On my own primary residence, I just got re-quoted with a new company on my insurance policy. My insurance went down by about 30%. In fact, what's happening is that it is mostly flat across the board as far as the insurance company's rates increases, meaning that they're not taking a rate increase, and 17 companies in the state of Florida actually filed to have a rate decrease, which is a really big deal. It is stabilizing. So the insurance market is stabilizing significantly, and also the real estate market is stabilizing significantly. But here's the deal. That's not going to make headlines, which is a stark contrast to how the news reports about when the rate increases took place. It was all over the news about all of the troubles that Florida was having in terms of insurance, and so it scares people, and now they're not understanding that the market is stabilizing in a significant way. And so we're talking about homeowners insurance. And so here's what I would tell you. If you already own a home in the state of Florida, it would be a really good idea to reach out to your insurance agent and get quoted for a new policy. So they can run it through different companies, and they can see who is the most competitive company for your exact situation. Because as you know, your situation is a lot different than other home situations. So if you're in a new construction home, that's going to be very favorable compared to something that's an older resale property built in the 1950s or 1960s that's closer to the beach. That's going to have a significantly different risk to the insurance companies, and also a different policy premium to you, the homeowner. So you want to make sure that you're shopping this and making sure that the company has the best product for you as the individual. What happened over time as the insurance rates increased significantly, a lot of people who owned their properties outright in the state of Florida decided that they were not going to hold certain insurance products. So some people who were in a mandatory required flood insurance zone, if they had a mortgage, if they were able to pay their mortgage off or purchase property cash, they may just say, hey, I don't want to pay that flood premium because that costs $7,000, $11,000 per year. A lot of people make that decision. They were also making decisions to out of a wind premium altogether. So they were not going to have any wind coverage if there was a hurricane that came through. And here's why they would do it. Because the wind coverage is one of the most substantial parts of the policy premium that we pay here in Florida. On top of that, there's a 2% deductible if there's any kind of a claim against wind for the property. So if you've got some roof damage that came from a hurricane or came from a tornado, you would have to pay 2% of the coverage amount. So as an example, if you're getting $800,000 of coverage, you would have to pay $16,000 before your insurance would kick in. And so somebody may say, hey, my home's made of concrete block. I've got a new roof on here. I'm not too worried about that because I'll just pay out of pocket if I have $10,000 worth of damage and then not have to pay that portion of the premium on an annual basis to the insurance company. So a lot of people made those decisions, but here's what I would tell you. It is now time to re-look at your policies. I would venture to say that if you're watching this video and you have homeowners insurance in the state of Florida, you probably can find a less expensive alternative than what you have right now based on the competitive nature of what's going on in that market. And here's something else that a lot of people don't understand about insurance, and I feel the need that we can educate on this topic because it's that important. Let's talk about the coverage for a minute. You want to make sure that you have the proper coverage on the property. And I say property, but it's really structure. And as an example, if you paid $2 million for a property, that doesn't mean that you need $2 million in coverage, because the insurance company is not going to cover the land, the landscaping, etc. That's not part of things that they cover. The only consideration here is what it would cost them to replace the structure on the land. So for that $2 million property, maybe it's a $750,000 land value, and maybe it would cost $1.25 million to rebuild your home in that scenario. That would mean that you would need $1.25 million worth of coverage to be adequately covered. There's a big misconception there a lot of times, and so you just want to be careful that you are doing the right thing, because obviously it's in the insurance broker's interest to have you overinsured because the premium's higher, but you want to make sure that you're covered adequately without paying too much. This is a really big deal. I've also seen people who can save money on insurance when it comes to the replacement cost versus the actual cash value on personal property. So what does that mean? Personal property is all of your contents that are in the home. You have coverage for those with the standard homeowners insurance policy, and there's going to be different amounts of that coverage based on what your needs are, but you'll also pay a pretty good premium to have replacement cost of those items. So meaning, if the house gets burned down and there was a couch here, they would buy you a new couch. That's what replacement cost is. Whereas if it was an actual cash value, if that couch was 15 years old, they're not going to give you much money for that, because they're saying the value of that was destroyed is very small, so we're only going to give you, X amount, and then you've got to go buy your new couch. So you've got to make the decision that's best for you, but just understand that if you go replacement cost, there is a premium for that, but if you have a tragedy, it's really nice to be able to have replacement cost there. So how are the rates doing specifically in Southwest Florida, which is where we operate? And what we're looking at is we're looking at about an average of a $2,500 per year for homeowners insurance in Lee County, which is Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Lehigh Acres, Bonita Springs, and Estero, which is really not too bad. And I've talked to people in other places, California, Texas, etc., where theirs are much, much higher than that. And on average in Collier County, they're looking at $5,600. So more than double for the average premium in Collier County. Well, here's why. It's not necessarily that Collier County is a bigger risk, but the homes that they're insuring are more luxurious. They're bigger in general in Collier County. And so if we're looking at averages, of course, the average in Collier County, which is Naples, is going to be higher than what Lee County is. So what I would tell you in general, it's gotten quite reasonable compared to where we were a few years ago. And please, by all means, shop that rate. So hopefully you found this information valuable. If you have any other real estate related questions, me and my team would be honored to be able to help you with all of your real estate needs here in Florida. You can reach out to us. All the information is in the description below, and make sure to have a blessed day. Thank you.